Hello, I'm going to go over the final project information that you're going to need to know. Your final project is going to be an online artist review essay, and I'm going to go over the details and all of the resources that I've gathered for you. It's a bunch of great photographs of a lot of important female artists. Of course, I want to recommend for you to pick a female artist because I'm a big fan of promoting the female artists, but you can pick whatever artist you'd like. So the due date is available on Canvas. If you do not complete the final project essay, you will not pass this class. Be sure to let me know if you have any questions. So you're going to select one artist who lived during either the 20th or 21st century. So we've got a huge amount of artists to work with, and I did compile a list, which I'll talk about, that's part of this PowerPoint presentation, which you can also view as a PDF. Or from your research, if you would prefer to work with an artist that you find from your research that still fits this time period, but wasn't an artist that we covered in the course, that's okay as well. And I'm going to introduce you actually to an artist that we didn't cover in the course, but would be a great artist to apply the concepts that I want you to work with this final project essay. So once you've picked your artist, then it's required to include and reference the following. So there's a couple of different things I want you to think about. These are 5 of the main concepts that will come across in your final essay. So you're going to include a biography on the artist, which would be the introduction in the beginning of your essay, not necessarily the introduction, but in the beginning. You're going to include the 4 types of investigation, the process of visual analysis. You're going to explain the role of the artist. So we talked about that in the beginning of the course. So out of the 4 different roles, which role do you feel is what the artist is exploring through their creative process and the concepts presented in their artwork? After the research and consideration of the creative process of the artist you picked, did that change the understanding, appreciation, or the way you viewed or interpreted the artist's work? So that's an opportunity for, this whole essay you should be using your personal voice, but it gives you an opportunity to talk specifically about what you learned through this project about this particular artist and how that might have changed the way that you view their work. And then be thoughtful to include in a conclusion, so a closing paragraph that summarizes the main points that you considered in the concepts covered in your essay. So one website that you have access to, and I'm going to turn you on to a bunch of different cool resources in this lecture, is something that the PBS put together. And so there's a bunch of different links if you go to this link. And I'm going to let you navigate that if you choose. What I did is I went through a bunch of my resources, and that's what I'm going to share with you now. So first I'm going to introduce you to Google Arts and Culture Online Resources. So let me grab that and bring it over here. So if you go to the links that I've included, there's a way where you can see you can go anywhere in the world for these different online resources. And let's say you want to go to somewhere in Israel. I think that's where we are. When you have one of these red, that means it's a partnered institution. So then you can go to that institution and see stories that are supposed to be specifically either about a concept or an artist. So that's one way that you can view the Google Culture and Arts, is via a map if you chose to work with it that way. Another way to view it, which for me was a little bit easier, was to kind of go through this massive list. And there's hundreds of spaces that they have collaborated with throughout the world to offer these online resources, right? So some of them are specific exhibitions, some of them are resources. And let me just move this out of the way for a sec. What I've done here is I kind of started the process for you. So these are all links that would take you to, some of them are local. Ai Weiwei was an artist who did a really cool exhibition on Alcatraz Island. And so if you wanted to learn more about that, you can take that link. Oh, that's not the link I wanted. Sorry, let me grab that again. Sometimes my PowerPoint, I have to like really work extra hard to get it to function properly. You'll have to excuse me as I'm getting this together. Sorry. Let's see if we got the right one. So yes, we did. So Ai Weiwei is a really interesting artist from China. I mean, there's so many artists that I didn't get a chance to introduce you to. And he did this project, and so this is what Google Arts put together to go through what he did. The exhibition was quite a few years ago, so I think it went down in 2015. But you can still learn about his process. He's an artist that can't leave China. He's on kind of like, well, he was on house arrest. I don't know if he still is. And so he made this exhibition through researching the history of Alcatraz and then creating these artworks. And then you as the viewer could go through and look at this work. So I'm just trying to show you, there's a lot of really cool links. And I've got 2 pages here in your, this will be also included in a PDF of the different exhibitions that I pulled out for you. Of course, the list is massive. So here's kind of how I'm hoping you'll proceed with this project, is you'll spend some time doing some initial research to pick an artist's work that speaks to you. So this is part of the arts, Google Arts and Culture, and I'm going to show you the work of Kara Walker, who is a really lovely artist. So this is kind of how you would be navigating the Google Arts page to learn about this particular exhibition that she did in a factory in 2014, where she's paying homage to traditions that are connected to her own personal heritage. And so here you can kind of see an example of what the exhibition would have looked like in this massive industrial space. When you see an image that has a little person in the middle of it, if you click on that, then you can actually have like a virtual experience, sort of getting a sense of what the space looked like, how she used the space, how her artwork was displayed in the space, and it gives you a little bit of the physicality of what that would have been like if you were, looking at the show. And then you can see details of the work. And then a lot of these sites that have been specifically put together by Google Arts, if you click here, there's a video where you can see the exhibition, her process, and also so then you can watch a video that they have curated with this particular exhibition. So if you chose to work with her work, and obviously there's lots and lots of artists that you can choose to do for this online essay that you're going to be working on, then you would clearly do some more research about her, and you Google her or however you want to do your research. This is her website. Her website's going to give you different projects that she's worked on, so you can obviously navigate that, a biography, news, things that she's working on. You can Google her images. So her older work, just so you can get a sense, she did a lot of these really large paper cutouts, right? Where the installation, this is from 1994, would be in a museum, you can't really tell, but these would be massive. And how she included these cutouts, again, looking at her relationship to this idea of the end of Uncle Tom and the grand allegory taboo of Ava in heaven. So all of her work has a very specific message, and she'd be a really fun artist to research and learn about for working with the creative process and being able to talk about what you learn about her work. So that's just one way for you to start this process, is to go through and visit some of these links that I've already pulled out for you from this article that I mentioned. So also from a different resource that I have, I pulled out a lot of Bay Area, and not all Bay Area, but some Bay Area collections that might be helpful to you. So for example, the Oakland Art Museum, they have a really lovely online collection of artists, and Dorothea Lange was someone that we talked about and is a really wonderful photographer. So if you decided to do your project on her, this is the collection that the Oakland Art Museum has already put together for you. So you can, kind of navigate through all these different pages. I think this is one of the images that we discussed. You've got the physical properties right here, links to talking about how the artist made the work. And it just gives you a sense of this work that she created in her life that was really focusing on the Depression in the 1930s. And so a really great resource. So I've given you the beginning for a lot of resources that I think would be helpful for this project. So there you've got resources. So now let's get back to talking about the actual project. So one of the things that I'm asking you to do is you're going to have a total of 3 artworks made by the artist, and I want you to include the physical properties. So you can have, your essay is going to be a total of, I'll talk about this in a sec, but there's going to be 6 to 7 pages. And 3 of those pages are going to be dedicated to the artwork and the physical properties. So reminding you again, the physical properties, the name of the artist, and I'm just showing you some of my own photographs just to fill the space. So the name of the artist, the name of the artwork, the date it was made, the size, the materials, the technique, and does it have an apparent function. So that would probably go back to the different genres that we talked about. So you're going to have 3 pages that are specifically dedicated to the artwork and the research that you find learning about the physical properties. So your overall paper that will submit online will be 6 to 7 pages, which is about, you should have it, the whole thing should be about a minimum of 1,000 words. I don't think you'll have a problem getting there with the different prompts that I'm asking you to consider. Like I said before, the beginning, you'll start off with probably like a short introduction, go into a biography about the artist. You can have the artworks at the very beginning. I'm not really, you can put the flow of your paper in whatever order works for you. I just want the artworks to be isolated from the rest of your essay. And then you'll also have, like at the very end, a bibliography of the sources, and those can be links from the different websites that you've researched. So just as a reminder, using the process of visually analyze, we've talked a lot about it. So you will, for each for each image of artwork that you include, you'll do your best to have the complete physical properties, which I just went over. And then you'll pick at least one of the artworks and apply these other two concepts of visual analysis. So you'll talk about the formal structure, which would be all of the different things that you've learned in this class. So composition, texture, and you'll want to go back through the modules to remind yourself of different terms that we've covered a lot of vocabulary, so you can go back and reference that. So I need for you to be really using the formal language from the course. And then you can pick a different image or the same image and identify the subject matter and the symbolism. And so those are things that we also talked about in the beginning of the course. So you can go back and revisit those concepts if you forgot. And then finally, you'll pick, then you'll also be talking about the cultural context. So different from the bio. The bio is just kind of a general sort of what you've learned about what this artist has been doing during their life. If they're still alive, that's great. If they're not alive, what they did during their life. And then you'll pick one artwork again, and it can be the same artwork, or you can, pick a different piece than the one that you use for the formal analysis of the artwork. And you will apply the cultural context to that piece. So what was happening, and we did this with the civil rights essay. So what was happening when whatever artist you choose was making the work? What was going on in the part of the world that they were living? How was something in that time of history particularly possibly influencing that artist's work? So I hope that makes sense. Again, you can always email me if you have any questions. Then you're also going to just generally talk about, again, I encourage you to focus on like one body of work or one exhibition, so it makes it easier for you to apply the concept of the role of the artist. So we talked about those as well from the learning unit, the visual world, discovering a world of art. So which one of these roles do you feel the artist's work best visually represents one of these concepts? So are they making work that is a visual record of their time and place? Are they making work to help us see the world in new and inventive ways? Are they making functional objects, but instilling those objects with beauty and meaning? Are they giving form to the spiritual forces that we've also sort of just briefly discussed with the spiritual belief learning unit and the cycle of life learning unit? So you're going to want to talk about the role of the artist, and you can always go back and remind yourself the significance of these 4 different roles from that lecture. And then finally, you're going to have a closing paragraph where you summarize in your own words what you've learned through this process and what you learned about the artist. So I had mentioned before, number 4 and number 5 are similar but different. Your closing paragraph shouldn't necessarily be the same as like what you've learned and how you've learned to interpret the work differently. And then finally, I put together a slide. These are many of the artists that we've talked about throughout this course. So you can either find a new artist, like I mentioned, you can use one of these artists, you can use any of these resources that I've included, and I'll also add a couple other links in the homework post that might be helpful as well. So I hope that this class has been a really lovely learning journey for you, and that this final project helps you to summarize all of the course content that we have covered. I really enjoy reading your final projects and seeing what you put together. So of course, keep me posted with questions, and I'm happy to help you the best I can. Thank you very much.